Hi, I've got a big week ahead. I had written about it yesterday in my Sunday note, which was essentially talking that I'm about to have in a couple of hours lunch with a senior M&A banker right before I go and hang out with Mike Wirth, the chairman and CEO of Chevron, for a couple of days, the midweek, which is going to be exciting. And then I'll end by heading to the OPEC meeting in Vienna after the big mega oil companies' Christmas party on Friday night, which is an opportunity to meet some big oil traders and the rest. But Saturday to London for the OPEC meeting on Sunday in Vienna. In theory, the plot twist at the moment is that OPEC has not opened up registration for analysts, which is not totally atypical, but is notable because I'm flying a long way here not to get registered. So we'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, this time next week, 7 days' time, is when Russian sanctions kick in theory, price cap in theory, but none of that seems to be holding up very well, and the market's responding badly, firstly, to that. Secondly, yesterday I mentioned in passing, but right at the beginning of my note, that we have to look obviously very closely at the situation in China. You know from the last 30 years, essentially, that if China sneezes, the world catches a cold, or perhaps you could say if China sneezes, the rest of the world catches COVID. And at the moment, the whole COVID policy and opposition to it is a very dynamic and interesting situation. We've never thought that China was sustainable long term, but I remember years ago Ed Morse saying to me, Saudi, has to change, and I don't think it'll change this week, I don't think it'll change this year, but I know it won't be the same in 20 years' time. And actually, Saudi managed the transition of power very brilliantly, in my opinion. Not only did they abruptly and surprisingly and aggressively flip a generation and give leadership to Mohammed bin Salman, aged early 30s, but Mohammed bin Salman then met the major challenge that we saw from the historical example of the French Revolution of separating church and state. How would Saudi disentangle church and state? And the answer was Mohammed bin Salman went right at it and essentially backed down the religious police and opened up particularly the social situation in Saudi, which has been a huge success, and it's now one of the two fastest growing major economies in the world, the other one being Texas. So that may lead to change in China, but you've just re-empowered Xi. So they're more likely, the risk is to dig in and get it wrong and end up with a total mess on their hands. So it's a very dynamic situation. That's all starting the week bearish, but as we've said repeatedly, don't go bearish in late November. Notwithstanding the concerns about China, which are huge, the fact of the matter is that this is typically a seasonal low. And we've been saying that from the first snow in New York, we expect a major rally in oil prices into driving season next year, 2023. We're still seeing the potential for OPEC to, particularly Saudi, to defend $100 a barrel. We think they want that, which is directly related to the social opening that they're doing. They want the budget to be able to pay for new stuff for young Saudis. We're still seeing weak production performance from the most price elastic part of the global oil market, which is US oil production. It's not really responding to high prices and certainly won't to these levels of price. And we're still seeing 21 million barrels a day of US oil demand at a time when, seasonally that's an all-time record high. And we're going into winter with pretty cold weather forecasts. So I think we're still bullish here, notwithstanding a beating to start the week in terms of negative news flow, particularly with concerns that Russian oil price sanctions and caps are not going to work. China's sneezing a lot. And, generally speaking, everyone's concerned about a recession. It is concerning, but it's late November and it's always darkest before the dawn, right? Okay, stay long.